going to talk a little bit about systemic work and constellations, because most people know it as constellations work, but it affects all sorts of systems. It affects your family systems, your organizational systems. So what does that mean for you? Basically what we're saying when we look at this work is we look at generations within an organization, or we look at generations within a family system. And so sometimes things that are really difficult for you, that have become a problem in your life, didn't begin with you. We say a lot, the words that you speak and the actions that you take began in the mouths and the bodies of your ancestors. And you don't just inherit physical DNA, you also inherit emotional DNA. And there are a number of studies that have been done about Holocaust survivors and the effects it's had on multiple generations. So we know that this gets passed down. And why is that important? Because we all get to a stage in life where we get stuck. And when we get stuck, it's what do I do? How do I get out of here? What's next? Now, for some others of us, we're on a journey and maybe we've gotten just a little further, but we want to go to the next level. And this addresses the same thing. Whatever level we're at, there are cycles that we want to break. There are patterns that we want to do differently. I don't want to struggle like mom did. I don't want to get all the way there like dad did and then U-turn and come crashing down. So this work begins to make you super aware of what lives in you and what lives in your language and your actions and in your systems. And it began very much with multi-generational work where we would look for the pattern, where it came from, how it's affecting you now. But somewhere along the way, we didn't always ask, and what can you do with that? And the what can you do with that is the place that I like to play, because it means you don't just stay stuck. It means you have the aha, but now there's something you can do with it. So if you think of Ancestry.com, right? Ancestry.com tells you where you belong. What they don't tell you is why or how that matters. And it matters. Things, patterns that have been created up here, filter down in a way that comes to you, and suddenly you may say, I'm stuck, and I can't figure out why. I've hit a brick wall. But when you begin to look at that pattern in a larger context, you may in fact be taking the next step on the system's behalf. And again, what we're working with is human transformation and human potential. So for a long time as well, this was kind of something you did, and you went to somebody who was rather special, who could do things and show you what was wrong. This is very much the approach that I do, is very much about, here's what happened, here's how it happened, here's how it's affected you. Okay, now we're going to look at what we can do with that. And what we can do with that is your next step. Visionary leaders and large companies are also finding that because we use this as a highly interactive piece, where you're literally using live representatives or pieces of paper, because we know we can transfer emotions onto inanimate objects. You're playing in 3D, you're in virtual reality. You can literally take the place you're stuck, stand in it, see it instead of trying to work it out in your brain, have a look at the relationship between different parts of the system, and literally see what needs to stop and what needs to start through you. And the start through you is the piece that only you can do. It's the chapter that only you can write. And so a lot of people say to me, is it transformational? Of course it's transformational. Anytime we take a step that creates a new neural pathway or a new pattern, it's transformational. And it can be transformational in a small way, or you may find that one word, for those people who were in the room this morning, one word had somebody stuck and then liberated. So again, paying attention to what people are saying and what they could do with it. You begin to see that you are never a victim in your world. There is always something you can do. Terrible things have happened to me, great. And what do we do with that? I'm held back and I'm stuck because, okay, where did that come from, and how does that become your gift? And so what we also begin to discover in this work, which is possibly newer, was, again, I've probably said it 3 times, not just the insight, but how is this something that I can turn into something so much bigger? And people, although they're frightened of the word magic, will say it's a little bit magical. For me, it's always magical, because anytime I watch somebody shift and I watch them really rise up into who they are, how is that not magic?
How did you get into this?
So of course, I would say the universe has a sense of humor, right? And again, this is all about the train smash, and you'll often hear me say, there's no such thing as a train smash. Well, my father was killed here, and we were in the process of immigrating, and he was handling that. And suddenly, with him gone, that fell to me, but more than anything, it really completely destabilized the family. And I started writing books. And as I was writing books, I came across this work and a very wise teacher who said, come work with me and I'll help you with your book. So, well, I went and learned his stuff, and I got any help with the book. But it set me on that path, because I began to understand the power of looking at a family system, the power of what looks like rejection or fractures, and how, when you look at life through a systemic lens, it becomes quite incredible, and you see how every single event, every single piece in your life is in service of your higher good. It always was, and it always will be. So it's kind of a long way of saying, I guess I stumbled into it if I'm thinking of it just logically, but in this world, you understand that everything is intentional, and as a young kid, I'd been set up to do that. And so, quick piece for me is that I told you magic is one of my top values. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, Disney passed away, and I was sitting in a white car in a little city in South Africa called Port Elizabeth, and we were on our way to the shops. It was a Saturday morning, and the news came over, and I said, well, if he's died, now who's going to make the magic? And nobody answered. And I said, okay, then I will. And that has stuck with me everywhere that I've been. When I left the medical world in South Africa, one of the people said to me, you may not be taking us with you, but you will represent us in the world and you will make magic. So it kind of seems to have followed all the way through. So what I do with this work is I show people how to make their own magic. They know how to do it once they see how to do it. And with all the senses that we engage, it becomes a full-on body experience, and you'll often find that people rewire in the moment. Why I do this? It goes back to the whole Disney piece, I guess, and I mean, or the whole piece around magic and human potential and transformation. I love watching it when people get themselves, when they suddenly realize I'm not this small being or this incapable being that I thought I was. I'm really bigger than that. I can really make a difference the way I choose with my voice. I couldn't ask for more than that. And I get to see that every day with individuals, with top executives, and in big companies. So I guess I would say I'm super lucky. I'm here at the point in time where that evolution, that desire for human potential to evolve has now become a thing in the world. I've had large companies say, can you show us how we're magical? So for me, that word pops up everywhere. I'll tell you what else. So when people ask me, what do you mean by 3D and what do you actually do at one of these big workshops? It's not what I do, it's what you do. Basically, what I teach you is the systemic framework. In other words, what are the 3 principles that you will always find in systems? How do those keep me stuck? And how do those unstick me? What are the 4 governing orders that exist in all principles? So it's that little piece. But then what we do is then we start to have fun, right? Because then we divide you into groups, or you interact with me, and we begin to listen very carefully to what you're saying, and we watch very carefully what you're doing. And as you're working with me in the knowing field, the representatives may begin to move, or you may begin to move. And suddenly you're seeing this, you're feeling it, and it comes from a completely different perspective. And for 90% of people, they will say, it's the first time I'm seeing it. Yeah, it literally is the first time you're seeing it. When we see what's in here in front of us, now we can interact with it. Now it becomes something that is a reality that lives in our bodies. So there's a lot of embodied experience. And now we can do something very, very different with it. So when you come to these workshops, they're highly interactive, they're totally experiential, and they are completely about you. You get to move you from here to where you want to be. You get to move from what is to what's possible. All the time we work, we're moving from what is to what's possible. And acknowledging what it is a huge first step. It allows what's possible to start swimming into focus. Hi, I'm Judy Wilkins-Smith. I'm originally from South Africa, originally from a medical background, and not too long ago, I stumbled into the field of human potential and transformation and started working on the family system side and then on the organizational side as the requests for more and more came in, and then began to understand as well that when you're working with leaders, it doesn't matter what the problem is in the organization or the issue. Not only can we work it out dynamically, but there is always a component of the leader themselves. And so I integrated both family and organizational constellations. And I teach that all over the world. I've taught in Mexico, Canada, Sweden, Denmark, South Africa, England. And the more that I teach this and the more that people begin to understand I am victim no more, I can become the master in my own world, the more they come in to come and see us and work with us. Why do people do this? There are two reasons. One is they're super stuck and nothing's helped, but the other one is they begin to get a sense that there is A, more to life than this, and B, that there is more to them than they know. And they're in search of that next piece of the puzzle. They're the ones who say, I want more, I'm going to go and do more, here's a step I can take. So it allows them to move themselves forward. And it also allows themselves the full embodied and full on-bodied experience of what's going on in their heads. And we know that when you use multiple senses, it anchors tighter in your body and it shifts quicker, and the shift is lasting.